So going a little bit into that, because of course you come from struggle. However, what I see around me is that most fathers live an average life. They had an average childhood. Hell, like it was fun, it was happy, there was nothing really, and now you can see they have an average life, a normal life, right? So there's nothing really pressing going on. And what I found interesting, for example, in your book, is that you mentioned that we kind of starting to surpass the average father. The father works, puts the food on the table. That's vanishing. And what I see is that most people now, they kind of just wobble along. They don't really see that urge to make a change. What is it that you think these fathers could, or maybe even should do, starting tomorrow, that could really get, like a snowball, get the ball rolling, and get them to open their mind and see that there is more than just going with the flow?
So I'm going to quote Stephen Covey. So I'll give you a couple of different things you can do. I'm going to quote Stephen Covey, who was the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. You have to begin with the end in mind. Most men, most of us guys, we are so in the daily grind that we are oblivious to where the time is going. And that's really powerful. One of the exercises that we put men through is writing their own obituaries. Now, that sounds morbid. That sounds scary. It's not. Think about that for a minute. Most men will go to their graves without ever understanding what the true vision of their life really was. Did you ever hear what happened? I can't remember. Was it the Nobel Prize guy? Oh God, I can't remember his first name. Is it Alfred? Maybe, I don't know. I'm butchering his first name. But do you know the story about the man who developed the Nobel Prize?
No.
Okay, so he had a brother who passed away. And in the newspaper, I guess it was that week that he passed away, his obituary was written. Well, the newspaper reporters had his brother confused with, I think it's Alfred Nobel, I'm pretty sure, who developed the Nobel Prize. They mistaken him for Alfred Nobel. So his obituary was written, the man who is still living and not his brother. And he read his own obituary. And it was such an incredible wake-up call for like, oh my gosh, like this is awful. This is the life I'm living. This is the impact I'm having on people. Like this is what I am. And it was such a huge wake-up call that he completely made a pivot in his life and started living his life completely different. And now we have the Nobel Prize. So it's totally different. Now, I will say this. I don't know the full scope of that story. I just know that that was the premise. But most men will go to their grave not really understanding what the vision is for their life. The other thing most men don't understand is what are our core values. This is another exercise we want men to do when they come and join us in the Alliance. What's the core value exercise? So let me give you an example. Just about every human being operates within 5 to 7 core values. Okay, and core values, there's over 30 of them, but adventure is one. Humor is one. What are some other ones? I'm totally, relationships is one, connection is one. So it's like all these different things, and the core values is always one word. So we have a document that we allow men to understand what their core values are. Now, your subconscious knows what your core values are, but on a conscious level, we never really understand what our core values are. So I'm sure you've been operating in your life and you've come across a situation, you're like, I don't know what, maybe it's a girl you've dated, right? Maybe it's a girl you're dating at the time and you're like, I don't know what it is about this girl, but it doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel right. That's our core values that are speaking to us. That's our intuition that's speaking to us. Probably that girl that you're dating is not in line with your core values. Maybe one of your core values is adventure and she's like a homebody and she hates going out. And you're like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like I want to go out and explore. I want to travel. I want to do things. That's one example. And then there are times in your life where maybe you're dating the right person and you're like, I don't know what it is about this girl, but man, everything feels right. Chances are you're both operating within you and her are similar in core values. It feels right. It feels like a match. Same thing with our job. Same thing with even our emotions towards money. You know, like some of us are squirrels. We have to save every penny. And some of us are spenders because we want to do it, but that's part of our core values. So most men don't really understand what their core values are. We just have these gut feelings. Now, the thing that we put men through is we really allow them to understand what their 5 to 7 core values are, and then they write what's called a being statement. And a being statement is it's like a life mission statement. And the way you use this in your life is anytime you are faced with a really tough decision, you can't figure out what to do. You go back to that being statement, those core values, and say, does this next decision line up with my core values? So like I'll give you one more quick example. Environment is one of my core values. In other words, my environment means the world to me as far as my attitude, my productivity, my happiness, all these things. So like the home that I live in has to feel very, very good to me. So we just moved literally this past weekend. And the home that we bought was a little bit more expensive than the home that we were in. But it was every single thing that my wife and my family wanted as far as within a home. It was bright, it had sunshine, it had all these things, you know, and it overlooked a lake with a fountain. It was just very peaceful. And even though it was more expensive, it lined up with our core values of how our environment is so important to us. And it made that decision very easy. So we were like, well, should we do it? Should we pay more? It feels like we should. I don't really know. We were like, wait a second, this is in line with our core values. Our environment means a ton to us. It means a ton to our happiness. It means a ton to our family. We're going to do it. Most men don't understand that. And most people don't understand that. So that's another thing. And again, so getting back to your question, you really have to understand what you want your life to look like. What's the vision for your life? Because back to your question of men are just in the grind. You know, they're living these average lives because they don't know any better. Because most of us have never been taught to create a vision for our lives. No one has ever taught you to sit down and really understand what are my core values and what is my mission? What's my being? Why am I here? So that's what men, everybody should do that. If you did that, I guarantee, I think your life would operate very, very differently.
Yeah, that's deep, and I hope people listened well. That's something we work on with Niji a ton.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's one more thing I will share too. You have to get very real with yourself. You have to sit down and literally get very real with yourself. And what I mean by that is look at those 5 dimensions: financial, your relationship with your wife, relationship with your kids, your health, and what you do for a living. Those 5 things. Sit down and write down, am I where I want to be in each one of these things? And if not, where am I currently at? And why have I gotten here? And how do I get to the level that I want to get to? So maybe you're great with your finances, but your health is just a complete disaster. But you want, instead of going through like, oh, I'll just keep eating what I want and I'll just feel, it just feels terrible, but I'm making good money. If you want to improve your health, this is where you get very real with yourself and be like, okay, you know what? I'm here. I'm at this weight. I might even have maybe I have the start of a disease process because of how I've eaten, but here's how I can turn it around. But most of us don't sit down and be like, all right, I need to get real with myself. I have to get real and stop lying to myself that this is okay, because it's not. It's, and I'm not saying it's not okay for you. I'm just saying if it doesn't feel right to you, it's not right. So you have to get real as well with where you're currently at, where you want to go.